You might think robotic affirming is just repetitive, emotionless, but your specific person is actually feeling it more than you might realize. When your inner state shifts, even slightly, even as you're making that small progress, they are seriously responding to that. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, of course, we're talking about your specific person and the impact robotic affirming, or overall, even though the title shows that, just overall the impact of affirmations and the repetition you're putting in, because this, of course, can apply. It's not just a rule for robotic affirming. Any other repetitive practice you are being really consistent with. But of course, with affirmations, you can say one, every 2 seconds, let's say. So being able to repeat that for a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a time, that is really, really powerful. And I'm going to explain all about that in today's video. So this can be reassuring, not just educational. If you're already on your journey and you maybe want a pick-me-up, a boost of, the impact of what you're actually doing, the mental mindset impact, and a lot of the quantum mechanics that kind of tie into this. I'm going to touch on that in this video as well. So you want to stay tuned throughout. If you would like extra support, maybe even some bonus content, exclusive videos that only members see, you can join my membership for $8.99 a month. On screen, for anyone who's interested or new viewers, is the highlights of what I offer, my special coaching discounts. Now, the video itself that I always include doesn't have that because I took that screen recording before making the updates, but I do actually have 20% off many packages, 50% off when you buy my SP guide. So this is actually the best video to promote that. So if you are interested, you can just click through, take a couple minutes, look at what my membership offers, because they're getting a Q&A and tons of bonus content. But for coaching, my website will have all the offers and info. So if that does interest you, take a look. But now let's get into this content. It really forces your mind to start dropping that old story. I don't want to say drop overall, where it's just a 180 flip, because people can get impatient, but it does force your mind to start to drop that old story because you're not feeding into it anymore, right? So it's this tiny little kind of harmless monster that you're no longer feeding, and then it just dies away, right? Bit of a harsh metaphor to give there, but when you're no longer feeding into and applying any form of repetition, even if it was maybe 3 negative memories a day, 3 negative thoughts, 3 negative conversations a day that you had about your specific person, even inner conversations, not just with other people. When you're no longer doing that, when you're no longer feeding that as the dominant story, the dominant focus, and putting your repetition elsewhere now into the new positive story, then how can the old story grow or stay alive or be maintained? It's not going to be upheld as an assumption, as a reality for you in your life, because you're not feeding into it. And those assumptions start to become automatic. The thoughts themselves become automated, kind of on loop. It does. That's, the point of robotic affirmations. You don't need to think about it. You just say it. You build up a habit. You teach it because your subconscious is always listening. You don't need to put emotion or intention behind everything. A lot of things we say throughout the day might be silly or throwaway comments. Saying something like, this traffic jam is going to take forever. Like, it's a throwaway comment. You're not literally manifesting that the traffic jam stalls in the middle of the road forever, right? So it's the same kind of concept with throwaway comments, random statements you might have said, but with robotic affirming, you're repeating it so much. You're saying it with intention the intention is there, but you're not saying it in the moment with intention. Your intention is to, of course, use the robotic affirmations to build up repetition for your subconscious mind. But the intention behind that practice is there, and you're applying so much repetition that you are manifesting that, and it becomes this automated habit. And then what's happening is whatever lingering doubts there were, whatever the old story was, that's no longer your dominant focus. So your SP is responding to those assumptions, not the doubt that has been in your mind. Even if it's still a little bit there, which is normal, your SP isn't going to suddenly respond to 3, 5, 10 negative doubtful thoughts. They're responding to where your dominant focus is, because you're changing your own subconscious mind with your thoughts, with the repetition. It's also literally training the subconscious to start to accept that new version as the norm. It's normalizing it. It's not this far off, impossible, unrealistic manifestation. It's what's being created because you're normalizing it. The excitement will start to fade away. It will kind of plateau and balance out where, you know, yes, obviously your motivation is still there, but it's not going to be this crazy novelty where maybe the first few days it's going to feel so brand new and really exciting, and a lot of, you know, probably feelings, emotions and thoughts will well up, and it will feel, the novelty will be there essentially, and that kind of fades away. But it's not a negative thing. It becomes so normalized that even saying that to yourself, you probably don't have too much of a reaction. It's almost like if you said, I am going to get some work done today. Same thing as saying, I'm in a relationship with SP. Eventually it gets to a point where it feels normal to say that. You may also find that you're going to be less reactive to the 3D. This is definitely something that happens if you can build up, maintain that consistency, because you're kind of desensitizing your mind to those old patterns, those old reactive states, the literal neural pathways in your body, the signals that are being sent. It's all going to change. The patterns within your mind and your body literally change according to your lifestyle, your practices, your habits. So if you're constantly worrying about, in this case, you know, let's obviously stick to SP, your relationship with your SP, where it may progress or where things may lead to, regardless of what the circumstances are. I don't care. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. But where you're at, you might be worrying about that a lot. And if you never do anything to shift that around, that is going to be your automated mindset, your automated emotional mental point that you're always focused on, because your reaction always is, if someone mentions SP's name, panic, anxiety, bringing up negative, stressful thoughts. If you never put effort to shift that around, then it's not going to change. But in the same way, when you've built up and maintained these positive reactions, these positive thoughts that simply come from the repetition, from being consistent with these positive thought patterns, that's going to be your new dominant state. Something they may experience is feeling this intangible, kind of unexplainable pull towards you, almost like being magnetized towards you, an energetic pull. Again, if they don't know you, this can still be done. It's not that they're literally thinking, I'm being pulled towards Sarah, I'm being pulled towards James, you know, just random names that came to mind. You know, it's not that they're literally going to think that if they don't know you or have any form of contact. So if it's a famous SP or maybe someone, like I said, you haven't had that communication or relationship with yet, they're still going to feel that energetic pull. It'll be a bridge of events that leads you closer. But if you know your SP, then of course they might genuinely have you in their mind. And tying into that, another thing that of course will happen is they might think about you more at seemingly random moments. It may actually be random. It doesn't all have to be perfectly timed, especially with the way the human brain works, but they will oftentimes think about you a lot more. You'll pop into their mind. They'll be reminded of you. And very much within their awareness, your SP, if they know you, as I said, if there is existing contact, some existing memories, then the old version of you actually kind of fades away. It's not at the forefront of their focus, their awareness, their thoughts about you. That old version, if there was something negative circumstances or issues in the past within your relationship, then that kind of fades away. They don't view you in that light. I will say this does tie into self-concept. So this is where, you know, mirror reflection, how everyone is you pushed out, how your SP is going to perceive you. It does tie into your quality of self-concept. You may find that if you've always had a lot of doubts and concerns about your perception, how other people may view you or treat you, and you've really held on to that, been concerned about that, it's been projected out to other people. Yes, your SP may take longer or may still reflect elements of a slightly, you know, poorer self-concept, but ultimately the version of them from that old story, from whatever may have gone wrong or prevented a relationship with you forming in a really amazing way in the past, that is going to change. They're going to start viewing you from the light of the new story, of being able to be with you, of wanting to be around you, communicate with you, just viewing you in a positive way to whatever extent of communication you've had so far. So if you're an ex currently, just based on 3D circumstances, they will, you know, forget whatever the old story was. Or if it was simply a friendship, they may start to develop feelings or start to say, wow, I'm actually seeing them in a different light. And yes, even if there is no contact, because that is just a circumstance, they still experience that internal shift. When you get really consistent with your assumptions, when you build up and maintain consistency, there's no fixed, quantifiable time frame. It's a bit different for everyone. It's usually at least a couple of days. Like, you really do need to build up that consistency where it becomes a habit, a pattern. You start to feel a improvement in quality in your own thoughts. So yeah, even though that you can feel that instant shift, it needs to be able to be built up for your subconscious to start accepting this is repetition. This is what's being fed. The old version is no longer being fed. When it gets to that point, mixed signals that may have occurred, they start to disappear. The mixed signals to do with your specific person, them being hot and cold, up and down, that really starts to minimize. So I've referenced the old story and maybe fears and doubts that you may have had and held on to about your relationship because of maybe conversations, issues, past dating concerns. It doesn't even have to be directly about your specific person. We all build up some negative beliefs and experiences, that's life. But when you stop acting and thinking and going about your life and holding yourself to a standard that's based on fear, on doubt, on self-doubt, they respond to that. They stop viewing you, and you stop having interactions that are based around that old story, that fear, that doubt. And of course, it's no longer pushing them away. Whatever the effects of that might be, where they are either mirror reflecting back to you these assumptions, or it's simply kind of almost self-sabotaging or holding them at arm's length, that starts to minimize. Those barriers start to come down. So you will start to see signs of visible movement, signs of your full manifestation, the full relationship starting to take effect and starting to build. So your inner world, your inner reality, and those conversations you've had with yourself no longer contradict the new story. So again, it's built up through repetition, consistency. But when you start to get to that point and there's not this hot and cold within yourself that's being reflected within SP, or if you don't yet have communication with them in your manifestation yet and in your personal experience with them yet, that's going to start to build up. So the signs of movement and signs of things coming together could very much at this point be dreams, communication from them, messages, maybe if there was a lack of contact, no contact, a break, or being ghosted, or just not given the initiation and being pursued by SP, that's going to start to shift. So it can come in different ways, where it's internal just to you, or it's SP taking an action. So there's no one size fits all or one experience that everyone has to have with an SP, but oftentimes you'll experience these different types of movement. The good thing with robotic affirming is you're kind of disengaging and detaching from that emotion. You're in a very powerful, quick way, disengaging and replacing any negative emotional state, because there's no emotion attached. You're going about your day, you're multitasking, you're just robotically affirming in your mind, and you're disengaging from any negative emotions that may rise to the surface, that may have been the automated reaction in your mind, in your body, anxiety or fear, whatever it may be. That's no longer the automated state. You're disengaging from the emotions and you're literally rewiring your mental focus. The dominant story that you hold about your SP is changing internally. That's the main thing. That's always the focal point, not what did SP post on social media. It's about internally where you're at, what your assumptions and thoughts are reflecting. So by rewiring that mental focus, your external reality is going to start to shift and your SP responds to your dominant baseline. So again, where that dominant focus is, it's going to be more positive, more in the new story. The repetition literally forces that to be the case. So those, momentary experiences of fear, the moments of feeling fear or doubt, and the kind of spikes of those negative emotions and reactions are not going to dominate where you're at, your emotional or mental state, which is super important because you don't want to be at that point in your life. You want to have control over your emotions and self-awareness of your emotions, and not be dominated and controlled by anxiety or any emotion of that nature. So you're literally moving beyond that and ensuring that your SP isn't going to respond or reflect back to you those momentary repetitive negative reactions, because they're responding to the dominant story that you're now creating. What this also does in quantum terms is connects you to the version of your reality, the quantum reality where it already exists, where you have this relationship with your specific person. So you're literally focusing on telling yourself that you are in the reality where this relationship exists. And as that connection, quantum connection stabilizes more and more, strengthens, you start to believe it and accept it more and more. You're keeping your subconscious trained on that new story. your physical reality is being given that chance and that time to catch up to it. You'll also find that you probably just don't care as much about the 3D reality. You're not fazed by it. Like I said, it all ties into your internal state stabilizing, improving, becoming more positive. So things won't trigger you as much overall. So whatever the old story was that your SP was reacting to up until now, you're kind of removing that. You're erasing it and rewriting it with the new version. So that's what your SP is going to really start to reflect. And once your internal reality really stabilizes to that point, your relationship with your SP has to stabilize, and you're going to start to see more evidence of them conforming, of the relationship really forming the way you want it to be. So you just have to keep persisting in this, because once you reach that point, you may not see everything physically taking effect and developing, but trust me, behind the scenes it is. If your emotional mental state is improving and focusing more on the new story, then your SP has to be responding to that as well. So I'm going to leave this video here. I hope it was useful. I think I touched on some really helpful points. If you did enjoy this, then please do thumbs up, subscribe, turn on that notification bell. Also, I had some good feedback recently about people hyping up my videos, which is awesome. If the hype button is available to you and you enjoyed this, I'd love for you guys to do that, because it would help promote my video to more people across YouTube and let YouTube know this is a good quality video. So thank you guys very much, and see you soon. Bye.